Well, happy Friday to everyone. I am William Pelarenos. I am your host here, and WRMN 1410 AM, broadcast in a lovely downtown Elgin. My show is Life Experiences with William Pelarenos, and today I have a very special guest with me, Ania Pulit. She is a account manager with Landtrust Services. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me today.
Yes. I met Ania at an event where they were talking about land trust, and they were trying to prevent people from being victims of wire fraud and other types of frauds. And it was a very nice event that she put on. She was part of it, and she had a lot of interesting information. I was talking to her, and she had, when people are doing buyings and closings of property, there's some incidents that occurred with check fraud and payoff fraud, wire fraud. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So our phone lines are open at
847-931-1410.
Feel free to call in any questions you have. She'll be free to answer them. And are we on YouTube?
We are on YouTube.
What's the site?
YouTube.com/WRMN Radio.
Oh, here we go. And we have a text message too.
That's 505-926-1410.
That's my favorite, texting.
Text them.
So anyways, feel free to either text or call in a question or write it on YouTube if you want. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And on the second half of the program, we'll be talking about closings and closing costs, how much it costs the seller, the buyer, the fees involved, as well as putting your house in trust. This is something I discovered about 25 years ago, and there's advantages to putting your house in trust. Matthew, you familiar with putting your property in trust?
I don't think so.
So you're going to learn something today.
Okay, good.
Okay, Ania, let's start off. You want to pick where you want to talk about. You want to start with wire fraud or what? What do you want to start with?
Yes, let's start with wire fraud. It is, as it actually can apply to anyone purchasing a property. Actually, it can apply to a buyer and a seller. And it is very, very important because, as we know, real estate transaction is, for most people, the biggest transaction, the biggest purchase that they'll make, which also means that there's a lot of emotions that are involved in such transaction, which means that there could be an anxiety, could be stress, excitement. And so it is easy to actually not pay attention to the red flags that could occur during actually going through the process of the transaction. And this is also why it's so important to have a team behind you that is going to look out for the most common risks that are associated with a real estate transaction. So wire fraud, for example, how can we spot wire fraud? It is actually like the silent thief of real estate transactions. What happens is fraudsters pose as real estate professionals or title companies, sending convincing emails that trick buyers into wiring funds straight into criminal bank accounts. And to give you a picture of how it looks is, let's say you're buying a home, you've been emailing your attorney, because in our state we always have a real estate attorney representing you, and you're asking them, how do I wire my down payment, my cash for the closing? And while the title companies and law firms use secure encrypted emails, not everyone involved in that conversation has that level of security. And so hackers often target individuals who are using everyday email domains, such as like Yahoo, MSN, Gmail. And because those accounts usually lack the same advanced cybersecurity that we would actually, on the business side, invest our money into to protect us. And so it's much easier for a hacker to break into one of those accounts and quietly follow an email thread as a conversation is happening. So imagine a hacker secretly breaks into that email conversation. They watch quietly, learn your closing date, jump into pretending to be your attorney in the middle of the conversation in your email exchange, and they send an email that looks identical, almost like the same signature, because they already can copy and paste exactly stuff that was involved in the conversation previously. And they'll say, hey, we've updated the wiring instructions. Please use this account instead for your wiring. And it's a very settled, slick, and very effective way that they actually were able to get away with this in so many cases. Because according to the FBI, actually, I pulled some stats here. Internet Crime Complaint Center, business email compromise, like this kind of wire fraud, resulted in over 2.9 billion in losses last year alone. And while the FBI's recovery asset team was able to successfully freeze about 71% of attempted fraudulent transfers, full recovery isn't always possible. A recent report actually showed that only 29% of stolen funds were recovered fully, and in most cases, people only got back a portion of their money, if anything at all. And that's why speed is very crucial. The sooner you report suspicious activity, the better chance you have of freezing the funds before they disappear. So to give you a real life example, we actually had a very, we could say, exciting week around Thanksgiving. So it was a short week, right? We would think it's before the holidays, a couple of days, it's going to be easy, we can relax. But on Monday, one of our teammates reaches out to our operations behind the scenes and lets them know that the buyer for a transaction that was closing on Tuesday wired in $600,000 for their cash purchase to what then turn out to be a fraudulent account because their email between them and the wiring team got intercepted. I believe it was between their attorney, actually. And that email was provided with the wrong criminal account information. The one key to prevent actually the money loss is to act fast. And so because we're able to intercept that almost instantly, why it happened when the buyer realized that the person who provided the wire instruction was not the person who they should have trusted. Luckily, the bank still had the funds frozen and they were actually not transferred out yet to that account. And so they were able to cancel that transaction and we were still able to close because it was caught in time. But the thing is, it is always very important to act fast in such situations. But obviously, our goal is to make sure that we prevent it, which we can talk a little bit later of what kind of features we implement as a company to prevent such loss.
Yes, hold on that thought. You get a good example. A couple of things that happen with that case. One, it's always insanity that goes on before the holidays. You got a shortened week. You got the banks are going to close, and sometimes they even close early.
Yes.
Like Christmas Day, they'll be closed, but at Christmas Eve, they'll close at 3 o'clock. You're familiar with that, right?
Yes.
So you got all these wires going on, and what your case is, they were impersonating the seller, right?
That's a different type of fraud. So wire fraud is just them impersonating either the title company, their attorney, because they wrote themselves into the email conversation where, let's say, the title company was talking to a client or the attorney talked to the client. And usually what we do not provide. So pretty much any attorney or any title company, you always see in email signatures that we do not provide wire instructions in an email format. We have other ways to provide them. But a hacker, what they would do is they would actually still proceed sending, let's say maybe a PDF document that would be nicely branded with the company's logo and make it look like it's actually a real document presenting the wire instructions with the account number where they should send their proceeds to.
Yes. I'm glad. I want to differentiate between these different types of frauds. And I want to go back to something you said earlier, which is important. You said there's a lot of emotional trauma that goes on with buying or selling a house. And that's true. When I purchased my house, there was so much drama going on. It was some 30 years ago. But you don't realize these things nothing can happen for 2-3 days, and then pop, things start popping. So I've read somewhere that buying or selling a house is one of the most traumatic events, including getting married, getting divorced, or having a child. Those are the top. There's a couple more in there, but the top half dozen of. And you're dealing with a lot of people. You're dealing with real estate companies. You're dealing with realtors. You're dealing with attorneys. And these attorneys are carrying maybe 40, 50 cases, so they can't always be on top of everything. So you make a good point there, but always verify. And I don't understand why people automatically do something without calling the phone number.
So yes, we always want to make sure that there is a communication, verbal communication between the client and us, especially if it's our wire instructions that need to be provided. So we will never provide wire instructions over email. And this is one thing to always remember, that if someone emails you the wire instructions, my only advice is stop, don't do anything. Pick up the phone and call the last number that you know that it's trusted, that was affiliated with a transaction, whether it was the attorney, whether it was a representative of a title company. But don't obey by the rules that were in that email that tells you, oh, call this number, or take this information to your bank and follow the instructions on the attachment below, just because you cannot confirmed who it actually came from. The changes that the hacker may make are so tiny that is almost sometimes very hard to notice. They might change the email from, let's just say, from example, if the law firm had a domain that ended, let's say, at lawfirm.com, it could be at lawfirm.us. And
Yes,
those are
it's
tiny
very
little changes that are almost highly unnoticeable in a way. But sometimes if the hacker is good, they'll actually intercept the actual conversation. So you may actually had a trusted conversation with someone, whether it was title, whether it was your attorney, anyone, and maybe you actually had 6 exchanges before that, but they inserted themselves in the middle of that conversation. So this also is something that does not trigger the warning that, wait, I should look up because I already was corresponding with these people before. This was my attorney. We talked about something over the phone. So it has to be coming from them because it's a continuation of an ongoing conversation. It's not like it's a separate email that came in your mailbox. So as technology is getting better, hackers are getting better, and we stay on top to make sure that we trace as much as possible of what is going on and how more advanced this gets.
Thank you. Thank you. Remember, folks, before you transfer or send any money, make sure you telephonically communicate with your attorney or the seller or the trust people, somebody you've already been involved with. You have phone numbers. Everybody's got a cell phone. Pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I got this request for so much dollar amount to wire. Should I wire it? Am I right?
Correct. And then this, for example, the example we're talking about was mostly applicable to the buyer because they would wire the money to us, correct? But now here's the other way that there could be another instance of wire fraud. It's called the payoff fraud. So what happens when you're selling your property and you still have a balance on your mortgage? You're going to have to call your mortgage company to get a payoff statement. And now that you have that payoff statement, it will have the information on there. The mortgage company is giving where to wire the payoff amount to. So now if the hacker was involved on that email, if they were trailing what is going on, and then you're actually sending, let's say, whoever was lending you money, whoever your mortgage company was, and now you're sending it to the attorney, the title company, the hacker could actually intercept and exchange that attachment with almost identical information except changing some digits for the account number, and that's how the fraudster would get a hold of the money in an untraceable criminal account.
And then once it's transferred, that money's gone, right?
Correct. I would say 9 times out of 10, 10 times, 100% of the times we have to get involved with the FBI. But like I mentioned earlier, the numbers of recovery are very, very marginal. So,
Yes. So that's important. If you wire money or you send money, it's hard to get the bank to.
Once it's gone, it goes into probably like this ghost account where it hits the one account, but then it gets emptied into another. So even if FBI freezes the account it went into, the money probably already exited and it's somewhere far away.
Yeah, these accounts are these hackers are very thorough, and they've thought this out, and they've done this hundreds of times. So you got to be very careful before you send money. If you get anything out of today's program, Here's the thing: if you're in a transaction like this and you can ask to wire money, please call your attorney, call the land trust company, call your realtors before you transfer anything.
Correct. Always triple, quadruple check.
All right, so that's wire fraud. We talked about payoff fraud. Did we talk about seller impersonation fraud?
No, not yet.
All right, let our listeners know on that one.
Okay, so unfortunately, seller impersonation is booming right now, especially with vacant land or investment property where the owner doesn't live nearby. And so scammers pretend to be the legitimate owner of the property, and they'll use stolen identities, fake driver's license, and forged documents to try and sell the property on behalf of the seller, but they're just impersonating the seller. They do not have the legal ability to sell. But with fake documentation, if it's not caught early enough, I know I've heard that there were cases where actually transactions have closed and someone sold the property without the actual seller's knowledge. And imagine if you owned a land somewhere, let's say far, far away where you don't drive by often or could be out of state, and all of a sudden your vacant land has a house built on it. What happened there? Now imagine what has to happen, like the legal process to undo this. But if someone already purchased the property, already built on it, now
It's problematic.
yes, let's just say it can be a very, very long process, and it's going to cost a whole lot of money either for you to A, get the money back, or to figure out how is it actually that you own the home that is built on it. There's so much involved in there, and it's a long legal case to get out of. And so now we've seen a lot of these attempts. I would say in the first quarter of the year, we probably had about 30 fraud attempts just in our office alone. So this is something that actually is happening quite a bit. And so I would suggest to anyone who owns a vacant land that they don't visit as often, go online. Just make sure that it's not posted somewhere for sale, because it is all preventable. It's just a matter of making sure that you keep your eye out on it.
Yes, you put out a nice flyer when I went to your class about vacant land fraud and these other frauds that you got. I'm going to put that on my Facebook page, Pelarenos Police Project. I'll post it tonight when I get a chance. But I enjoyed your class, and you make some good key points that people aren't aware of. In this vacant land fraud, it's almost one up on these squatters that go to these people's houses.
Yes,
You're
right?
familiar with
Yes.
this? It's a big problem in California, but there have been many incidents in Illinois of this where people have bought some investment property or some other property that they haven't passed by a long time, and lo and behold, there's people living in it.
That's true. And one way to spot a seller impersonation. So on our end, or actually the real estate agent that is being solicited by that potential seller, some of the red flags that we always let everyone know to look out for is if the seller is out of town, if they want to do everything remotely. This is the biggest red flag. Most of the time, these sellers will say, hey, they might forge a power of attorney of some sort or find ways to do things. Let's say they'll claim that, hey, I own this land in Illinois, but I live in California right now, and I would like to sell. I see that from the advertisements around town that you're the most popular agent in town. I would like you to help me sell this piece of land. So an agent, of course, who spends money on marketing would actually be happy probably to receive a phone call like that, right? But now, with the level of the amount actually of the seller impersonation or fraud that we see, now we also have to verify who is who, if they are really who they claim they are. And especially the one thing that became tricky since COVID, the real estate world adapted to remote closings and digital communications. So we definitely have seen a massive shift in how deals get done. So there are platforms that were developed to allow buyers and sellers to sign documents and close transactions from the safety of their homes. And that flexibility is great. But scammers have used it to their advantage, and they're hiding behind the same tools that made the closings more convenient. So while it's totally normal to close without ever meeting face to face, that's also why we have to be extra careful. And so definitely making sure that if we see that someone is not willing to do anything in person, take maybe even a phone call or a Zoom call, that it should already be a red flag to double check who that person is. And we do have different security measures that we can implement to actually verify the person's location. If they tell us that, hey, I'm in California, but we have ways to actually find out that, let's say if they send us an email, their IP address pinged in Turkey. So again, having a team with you that understands how important this transaction is to you and treating this like it's our own money, that makes such huge difference because we have the experience to know what red flags to look out for, and we're here for you to protect you.
That's great. That's great. And you know what? You make a good key point that on the seller impersonation frauds, the seller is not able to meet you, the impersonator. That's the same thing with the romance scams. When they get over line, but the person's never around, but they want money.
Yes.
Oh, I'm in England right now, or I'm in someplace else, and people send money to these people. It's unbelievable how people are calm.
Correct. And especially, I would say the most common threat that you see across a majority of the scams is urgency. Everyone is in some type of a hurry to get the money. So for example, with the seller impersonation fraud, the fraudsters would usually target vacant land that's unencumbered, which means there are no liens, no mortgages. It's some property that probably has been owned by the same owner for many years, and it's much more likely that the person is not paying attention to what's happening there. And so this is the type of land that is usually the most vulnerable to that type of fraud.
Okay, we got 1 minute left on this segment. She's going to be right with us for the next segment. Give your contact information. People got questions for you.
So I can give you my email. It's Ania, ANIA, .Pulit, P as in Peter, ULIT, at mylandtrust.com.
And what's your website?
mylandtrust.com.
And we're going to check on that when we come back. Stay with us. We got a quick news broadcast. We're right here on WRMN 1410 AM. Don't go away.
With your 1410 WRMN News Flash, I'm Sean Kernan.
Brought to you by Progressive.
As Kane County's population ages, local leaders are sharpening their focus on the needs of residents over 65. With nearly 1 in 6 Kane County residents already in this group, the county board reviewed challenges in housing, transportation, financial security, and social opportunities at their most recent meeting. Officer Kim Eversole of the DuPage County Forest Preserve District's Police has received statewide recognition as the 2025 Illinois Juvenile Officers Association Officer of the Year. With 14 years of service, Eversole stands out as the department's community engagement coordinator, focusing on youth outreach. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has officially launched his campaign for a third term in office, announcing his intentions during an event in Chicago on the South Side. In his statement, Governor Pritzker emphasized his commitment to protect our story, highlighting achievements in fiscal responsibility and social progress during his tenure. With your 1410 WRMN News Flash, I'm Sean Kernan.
Find what you love, love what you find. A Total Wine and More. more. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines. Walk right through the door. It's all here to explore. With guides in the know and prices so low, it just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love and love what you find.
Drink responsibly, B21.
One of life's greatest mysteries has finally been solved.
Who let the dogs out? Spruce, spruce, spruce.
It's Spruce, the new hard-working, worry-free weed and grass killer that's safe for use around people and pets. When used as directed, spray the leaves for visible results in just 1 hour and dead weeds in just 1 day. You spray, they play. Weeds die by the next day. Find Spruce wherever weed killers are sold.
Real estate, be it residential or commercial, is often a person's most significant and priciest asset. Entering into a contract to buy or sell a real estate property is much more than just filling in the missing blanks on the printed contract. It's wise to hire a lawyer to prepare or review the offer to purchase real estate and take full advantage of his legal expertise. With Mark Sheblo, you will gain an attorney with over 26 years of legal practice and one who has helped thousands of clients to buy or sell their homes or investment property. We will safeguard your interests and might be able to even negotiate a better bargain than a client without proper legal counsel ever could. Oftentimes, a prospective buyer will submit an offer without first consulting an attorney, not realizing that once the offer is accepted by the seller, it becomes a binding contract. And the terms of that contract are not easy to be changed afterwards. Likewise, as a seller, you too will benefit from first consulting an attorney before signing. Feel free to call us for consultation at the law offices of Mark Sheblo at 773-775-5050. Our website is sheblolawoffice.com. Mark Sheblo can be reached 6 days a week at 773-775-5050.
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast. This afternoon, isolated showers and thunderstorms before 2 p.m., then partly sunny with a high near 86. Windy conditions with gusts up to 25 miles per hour. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 63. Tomorrow, sunny with a high near 87. Currently, it is 79 and overcast. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
What's the one sale you can't miss? It's the Macy's One Day Sale. Come into Macy's and find the best prices of the month on thousands of incredible summer deals. From Levi's shorts for just $29.99 to Guy's fresh Alfani sneakers for the same price. From microfiber sheet sets $9.99 to $19.99 to over half off a 2-carat total weight diamond bridal set ring. Half off. It's a day unlike any other day. The Macy's One Day Sale. Today. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Welcome back to the second half of my show, Life Experiences with William Pelarenos here on a Friday. And we have a lovely guest, very highly informative today, Ania Pulit, and her website is mylandtrust.com. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we were talking about all these type of frauds when people are buying or selling property, how to prevent you from being ripped off. We've talked about wire fraud, seller impersonation fraud, payoff fraud, and she's given a few tips and clues because it's a very traumatic thing, buying or selling property. And I'm glad you're with us today. And we have one more fraud to talk about, check fraud. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so going back to when I mentioned our Thanksgiving week, exciting Thanksgiving week, it started first with the buyer wire fraud, which luckily was intercepted in time and were able to protect the funds and the buyer was able to close. Then the next one was actually that same week we encountered payoff fraud. A statement for mortgage payoff was brought into the closing and it was updated by the person just the day of the closing, which raised red flags, and our team verified it on the back end to find out that it was actually a fraudulent account. And before any money was sent, it was prevented because we knew at that point that the bank account did not belong to who it was supposed to, meaning the mortgage company that sent us the payoff. Then right after that, we received a phone call from a construction company that completed some work on one of the properties that was going through the sale process, letting us know that they still haven't received the funds for the completed work on the property. And when we went into the system, we looked at the check was actually processed. Luckily for us, which Thanksgiving, we had a lot to be thankful for, even though the check was already put into a certain account, actually the funds are on our end have not been transmitted. But what happened was someone intercepted a check in the mail. And what happens when, let's say, when you mail a check, even though we had tracking, even though it was securely sent to that company, because it was coming from a title company, and certain fraudsters know that certain companies will receive checks oftentimes from us or from different titles, those envelopes can be intercepted, and they would wash off who that check is paid to or payable to, and they'll change it with their name and put it in their account to try to get the funds. But again, luckily the way we have things set up, those funds were still protected. We're still able to pay the right people the right amount of money, but it is something that happens. So if you're a person mailing a check somewhere, also make sure that if you go somewhere, drop it off instead of into a mailbox, give it to the person at the post office. And if you're expecting a check, make sure that you check your mailbox, or if it is coming via FedEx or wherever it could be coming from, make sure that you have the tracking. And if something feels odd, notify the company that's sending you that immediately, because again, the sooner we know, the better the chances of stopping the fraud from happening.
Yes, I've talked about check fraud in the past, and it really correlates to mailbox thefts. They steal mail from those blue mailboxes, and they're just looking for checks in there. Or sometimes, you know what they steal a lot too is gift cards.
Yes.
Like those Menards gift cards, those are gone. Forget it. They steal a lot of those. But I've talked about this in the past, and we'll do another show on mailbox thefts and check frauds. But I'm glad you bring that up. But we've already warned people about all these thefts and everything. Let's talk about what your Landtrust service does, basically, because people who not bought or sold property really are not familiar with it. So tell me about your services when I retain you.
Okay, so I would say think of a title company as the behind-the-scenes team that makes sure everything is legal, clean, and secure before you close on a property. So breaking it down, maybe like to paint a picture, is imagine if you're buying a bicycle from someone, but you want to make sure that no one else has a claim to that bike. Maybe, someone else helped pay for it, or maybe it was stolen, who knows. Our job is to look back through all the records to make sure that that bike, in that example, really belongs to the person selling it. And in real estate terms, that means we're checking for things such as unpaid taxes, because property could have been sold maybe on tax sale, or old loans, or anyone else who may say they still own part of the property. And so we also make sure that all the paperwork is correct, help collect and transfer the money, and provide something called title insurance. That's like a safety net that protects you if something pops up later that we didn't see because maybe it didn't appear in a public record yet. And so to think of title insurance, what's different about title insurance from any other insurance is that it protects you from events that have happened or occurred in the past. Where, let's say, if you purchase homeowners insurance, it protects the home from maybe future damage of some sort, whether it was a fire or maybe hail, whatever it could have been. It's something that could possibly happen in the future, and you're paying for that risk. Title insurance also protects you from something that could have happened in the past, though, instead of the future. And so we want to make sure that as a person who purchases the home, you can actually feel content, secure that, let's say, nobody is going to be knocking on your door asking for money or claiming that you have no right to live in your home. And so in our state, the real estate company works together with a real estate attorney who then helps assist the client. And it is actually our intermediary to provide that service to make sure that we clean the title of the property in a way that now the buyer can move in and feel secure living in that property.
You know, when you do these transactions, you told me you had some 20 sites that you go to, including St. Charles, right?
Yes, we have over 20 closing locations in the Chicagoland area. So from Gurney down to Orland Park, depending on where the transaction is taking place. If the property, let's say if we're selling a property in the city or in the Loop, let's say it's a condominium downtown, we have a closing location nearby to that location, because if the buyer is purchasing in the city, likely as for them to actually having to go into the title company to sign certain documents, because we also still perform closings in person, and this is still a thing, even though we have the ways of doing it remotely. But we want to make sure that the buyer can come over and sign the mortgage and go over all the documents with their attorneys and the lender to make sure that everything is done properly, but in a location convenient nearby to them.
That's great. So you're very mobile. You move around.
Correct.
Okay. So your website is mylandtrust.com, and I'll put out your phone number if you don't mind here.
Of course.
Anybody got any questions for Ania? It's 630-200-6729. That's 630-200-6729. And Ania would be happy to answer your questions. You can look it directly at her website, mylandtrust.com, and you can contact her through her email on that site. So if anybody has any questions, now's the time to call in, or feel free to go on the website and contact Ania through that website. Now, just an example of some fees. There's when people are doing closings, there's real estate fees, there's title insurance, there's transaction fees, there's lender's fees, correct? It's all, and the buyer pays some while the seller pays others, correct?
That is correct.
All right. You gave an example here. You just picked at random one house that's being sold for what? The price is what, $500,000?
Correct.
Okay. Break that down just so we give an example to our listeners so we know where we're coming from.
So I'll also explain what this is that we're looking at. So this is a net sheet. So as a title company, we can generate an estimate for the seller, letting them know what it's going to cost and what are they going to net from a real estate transaction. And so in case if anyone is considering selling their home and would like to get this type of an estimate, they can also reach out to find out. So this is just, let's say, a simple property.
Just one
that we
example.
picked. Yes. Potential listing price of that property is going to be $500,000. So different fees in a real estate transaction will depend on the sale price of the property. So it's not the same for everyone. So there is a rate card that each title company has to follow on how much the title insurance cost, the owner's policy is going to be in such transaction. And there are some fees that also, some fees are going to be paid by the seller and some fees are going to be paid by the buyer, but it is all going to be insuring the property. And at the same time, there are some fees that are going directly to the county, to the state, and to the village, because there's the one thing that's very important to note is that each town will have different guidelines on their transfer tax and the items that the seller needs to complete before being able to sell the property. So there could be a required village inspection. We need to make sure that we obtain any bills, whether it's a water bill or anything that the town might be providing to the seller. We need to make sure that that is all squared prior to transferring the property to the buyer. But so let's say in this particular case, we have the owner's title insurance. There are some fees such as processing and search fees. So we actually have, once someone goes under a contract and the buyer and seller agree on terms of the sale, then usually the real estate attorney will involve the title company in assisting with the transaction. And this is when initially the title company starts a search, which involves going through different county records, for the particular property, but it means they have to either sometimes go in person, manually search, depending on how advanced that area is. Some counties have everything online, but it only goes, let's say, back to 1970. And if the property hasn't been sold in that many years, because there are some properties, people who have been in their homes or own their property for much longer than that, it will involve additional work or actual in-person visits to the county to pull such records to make sure that we know exactly the appropriate legal description of the property. This is something that is very, very important because each parcel of land has a specific description, and we need to make sure that it tracks exactly the same way as it did in the past. So there are different fees involved with the searches, and we need to make sure that we can provide a commitment to insure the property and let the seller know that we are able to proceed with the transaction. And so some other fees that are going to be involved are going to be the transfer tax for the state of Illinois, the county tax. So different counties, different fees. In the city of Chicago, you also have different fees. You also have to have city and zoning for certain properties done. So it will vary per transaction, and this is why I encourage everyone to reach out either to your real estate agent or real estate attorney or the title company, depending on who you have the relationship with, to make sure that they can provide you with an estimate, just so you know. So in this case, with the fees, we have the owner's title insurance, we have the search fee. There is a wire fee that the bank will charge in case if we're wiring the proceeds back to the account. And then we have the transfer tax fees. We have recording fees because, of course, documents have to be recorded by the county. So, again, different county, different fee.
Everything has to be properly documented
Correct.
to prevent future problems.
Correct.
And that recorder, the recorder of deeds
Correct.
handles that. Correct.
So usually the deed and the mortgage would be recorded as part of the public record. And then if we find during the search that there is an active mortgage on the property, we'll need a payoff. And so, for example, this particular property still has $125,000 that needs to be paid off on the mortgage.
And that's very common with properties being sold. There's always an outstanding payoff that needs to be done.
Yes, yes. So if you have a 30-year mortgage, but you're moving after 7 years, chances are
no money.
There's still quite a bit of money that's there. And actually, I pulled up statistic here, and I think it's pretty interesting, but over 5 million existing homes are sold in the United States each year, and the average person moves nearly 12 times in their lifetime. So let's say if you have a 30-year mortgage, and if you move 12 times, certainly there's going to be payoff.
Oh, we got a caller.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, okay, example, I have a mortgage on my house. And you know how you always hear that LifeLock on TV so they can't take your title to your house? So if I owe money, say a mortgage to PennyMac, okay, that's my mortgage company. I owe $100,000. Can somebody still steal the title to my house if I'm not paying somebody like LifeLock? Can they get around PennyMac or a mortgage company? Is my question.
I don't think they can. The term would be to steal. What they could do is they could actually intercept a payoff fraud. So let's say if you're selling a property and you have an existing mortgage on the property, now you have to get a payoff. The payoff is going to have the information how much you owe plus some additional fees that the mortgage company will charge for ending the contract. And they'll provide account information to send that amount from the closing. So we want to make sure that when that happens, when we send the money to the mortgage company, it goes to the right place. LifeLock, I'm not fully familiar with all the terms of insurance that they provide, but it is more on the identity theft, I believe. But For us, usually when we see seller impersonation fraud, it is on properties that do not have mortgages on there, because mortgage, if in case of like when you're selling a home and you would, or a piece of land actually, also, when you need to obtain the payoff, you also have to provide your social security and a lot of information for the mortgage company to issue the payoff to you. So usually a fraudster probably wouldn't look at it that way, at least from the title company's point of view. We don't encounter that like that, and I hope that answers your question.
I think so, yes.
You know, what we're talking about, a lot of these fraudsters or hackers, they're looking for property that's in transition, that's about to be sold and bought. That's where they're targeting. I think you got confused with when we were talking about the vacant land that was absconded. But you know, there's nothing wrong with having an extra layer of protection like LifeLock. They provide you services, and I've seen them advertising. I don't use them, but what I did, and I don't think your service does this, but I put my house in trust about 30 years ago when I first bought it. And it only cost me like $150 a year. You're familiar with people putting their house in trust, correct?
In Landtrust, yes.
In Landtrust.
There are different kinds of trust.
What that is.
Yes. The reason I did that was when I was a police officer, there was a chase on the highway, and there was a crash and some injuries, and the people that got hurt sued not only the person that hit him, but they sued every police department and police officer that was involved in that chase. So I always thought, hey, what if something happens? I got to chase somebody and somebody gets hurt doing my job. Why should I lose my house over? So I threw my house in trust. And from what I understand is, in case there's any litigation, they can't take my house until I sell it, and I'm going to die first.
Oh.
So there are different.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
So there are trusts. The Landtrust specifically shields the identity of the person who owns that property. Imagine it as the third party. Like, let's say if you gave the title to your friend, put your house in your friend's name, and if anyone is searching for your home, your name will never come up because somebody else technically holds the title at a fee that you're paying. Like you mentioned, you're about $200 a year. That's your cost for having that land trust. But what it is, it's a shield for your identity, so no one can actually really track down that you are the proper owner. But when the sale actually happens, us as a title company, we would receive all the information of the trust because we need to know who has the permission to sign off on the sale of the property. But again, this is not then made a public record at that point. It is shield in that land trust to protect your identity. And then also there are regular trusts, not land trusts specifically. If someone, I'm sure you've heard of state attorneys who create wills and trusts. Land trust and a regular trust are two different things, but properties can also be in trust that belong to somebody. And that also protects you against probate, and it does also give you other protection measures, but not necessarily the identity protection, because the trust can be named with the name of the person, so we know whose identity it is. But that's another topic. I don't know if you would like me to go into. And this is something that I would definitely refer. If you own your home, I would highly advise to consult a will and trust or real estate attorney. We work with a large number of great attorneys in the area. So if you need any recommendations, correct, you can always reach out, but they will guide you exactly based on your needs, how to protect yourself and how to make sure that if something were to happen to you, there's a trust that actually can help protect the property from having to go into probate and making sure that your family has access to what they need.
So that way, like Bill said, like if I get into a car accident and they sue me, they can't take my house. They can't make me sell my house.
So it depends on the land trust that you issue, yes.
Yes, the one that I bought, they can't take my house until I sell it, and I have no intention to sell it during my lifetime. So yes, there's variations. You know, you should go to her website, mylandtrust.com, and just check it out and give her a call later on because we're down to about 3 minutes. But thank you. But I wanted to just mention that out about Land Trust because it's something we got to touch on. But thank you for calling in. And hey, I love my listeners who listen every Friday.
Oh, yeah, you got one of the best shows. I like yours better than the one on Saturday. He's a cool guy, but I think for me, yours is more informational, but his is more for like the old people, I think.
Yes,
so, I appreciate it.
I try to put out public information. That's my whole show. I've been doing this. This is my 11th year in broadcasting. That's what I've.
Nice.
You know, I've had lawyers, I've had doctors, I've had nurses on here, and now I got this. mylandtrust.com. I thank her for giving up her afternoon because I know she had to reschedule some meetings in order to be here with us to get the information out to you.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, too. I appreciate her time. This is awesome. I learned a lot, and I will be checking out that website. Thank you.
Thank
Definitely.
you.
Message
You guys
us.
have a good weekend.
You as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye.
I think we touched on a lot of facts that we wanted to get out. How much time we got left?
1 minute and 30.
1 minute 30. So just one more time, if anybody has questions like this young man here, put out your contact info. Let's start with your website.
So you can visit us on mylandtrust.com. I think at the bottom of the page, you will have the way here, right there. You can contact us or you can reach out to me directly at 630-200-6729. And my name also, so my first name, last name, at mylandtrust.com is my email address, which is also listed on the website where we see right now. So feel free to go there and connect with me directly. I'll be happy to answer any questions or connect you with anyone that can also help as well.
And the way her website's set up, I've seen this a lot. You put your name and your contact info, and you write your question or your message, and they'll respond back to you.
Correct.
You got a lot of people working in your office, huh?
We do. We have a great team, and this is the reason why I'm there, because I know they have my back. And one topic that we didn't get to is how we can actually protect our customers from different type of fraud. We do have a platform that eliminates the fraudsters because we have to give people permission to enter that platform. But this is something that I can explain if anyone is seeking any assistance in selling their home, so we can make that a little bit more specific.
So if you're selling, get to that website, mylandtrust.com. Join us here next Friday in WRMN. Follow me on Facebook at Pelarenos Police Project and on Twitter at Police Project 1. William Pelarino signing off till next Friday. Have a happy 4th of July, everybody.